Now you have far-right ministers in the Israeli government calling for the resettlement of Gaza by Israelis. So how can anybody now claim that the Israeli government isn't trying to commit a genocide against the Palestinian people when you have ministers actually calling for genocide and now calling for the removal of Palestinians from Gaza so Israelis can live there?
Israeli Minister of Finance, meanwhile, Bezalel Smotrich, says Israelis will live in Gaza. He told Israel's Army Radio, "We must encourage the residents of Gaza to emigrate as they live in hardship and poverty."
Yeah, they live in hardship and poverty because of the Israeli government continually bombing every square inch of Gaza. So this is the fault of the Israeli government, and they're wanting to use that as a way of forcing Palestinians out of Gaza. This is a genocide.
The Israelis want to return to Gaza because it's a beautiful place and they will turn the desert into a prosperous place.
Well, yeah, Palestinians want to live in Gaza because it's beautiful and it's their home. So just because Israelis consider it beautiful doesn't mean they get to kick out the Palestinians.
Sarah Khairat joins us now from Tel Aviv. Statements like that will only go to confirm and alarm people across the region, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this finance minister is also in charge of the expansion of illegal settlements in occupied West Bank. That was part of the coalition deal when the far-right government was formed about a year ago. This is someone who also comes from a settler background, so he's very much in favor of moving Palestinians out of Gaza and bringing in the Israeli settlers. There used to be
So he's a terrorist who killed Palestinians to take their land, and now he thinks it's his land, the land for Israelis. This is genocide and terrorism.
Israeli settlements in Gaza up until 2005, but when the Israeli forces that had occupied Gaza withdrew, they also took with them the Israeli settlements and they weren't allowed to stay. This is a concern, especially because a few days ago, the War Cabinet was looking to decide to talk about, for the first time, what's called the day after, what happens once this war ends. And it was because of Bezalel Smotrich that they had to postpone it until Tuesday. He really kicked up quite the fuss, saying that decisions or those discussions shouldn't just be the War Cabinet, but it should include himself and it should include also the rest of the Security Cabinet. And that's why it's been postponed till Tuesday. On the other hand, you also have Benny Gantz, one of the War Cabinet members, that has been voicing his thoughts in saying that what is the plan next? Because the longer they leave those discussions, the longer it's unclear what happens. Now, someone like Bezalel Smotrich is...
What should happen is UN troops come in, help the Palestinians rebuild and defend themselves against Israeli settlers and the Israeli government.
Really saying that countries like Egypt should take people from Gaza and that he would encourage voluntary immigration. And of course, that would...
Okay, what about Palestinians immigrating into the Israeli nation? Is that okay? Or does the Israeli government just want to force Palestinians into any other nation that they can, or just bomb them to death?
Mean the reoccupation of Gaza. Now, when he says that we could turn it from desert into a prosperous land, this is a sentiment we've been hearing ourselves from some of the Israelis. That one person said to me once, what do they want? We left Gaza in 2005, and it's because of Hamas that it stayed in a state of poverty. But if you look at the facts, it's actually the blockade, 2 decades of it almost, by the Israelis that have prevented people in Gaza from leaving unless it's specifically warranted for work to work the Israeli lands, those agricultural...
Yeah, the Israeli government controls most of the borders but one of Gaza. They get to control the flow of goods and stuff into Gaza. It's impoverished because of the Israeli government. Yeah, she says the Israeli government loves to use Palestinians as workers. They're having issues with construction now that there's not enough Palestinians to help do construction.
Cultural lands in those southern towns. And also, the other thing is that they controlled everything from aid, they have done and they continue to do so, from aid to water and food. So this will.
Yeah, the Israeli government loves to use Hamas as a justification or to blame them for anything going wrong in Gaza, when in reality it's the Israeli government that's the problem.
Play into clearly many opinions that support the Zionist movement, especially and including those far-right figures in that far-right government.
All right, let's continue the discussion about what's happening across the region. We've got Mohammed Sharqawi with us here in the studio. Good to have you back with us. So let's start with the latest line coming out, the statement by Bezalel Smotrich saying Israelis will live in Gaza. Is he just saying out aloud what they're privately discussing in the cabinet for the post-war plans of Gaza?
Well, yeah, it sounds like he's saying aloud what he should be saying privately. He's telling the world that the Israeli government to commit a genocide. How else do you force out people from land that you want? You commit a genocide. You make it so uninhabitable that either the people leave or they just die.
Well, it seems that the right-wing vision of the future is imposing itself on Netanyahu's strategy. That means this war is a preamble to recolonizing Gaza and putting it under the control of Israel, which is going to create a huge de-escalation in the region. Therefore, if the idea of eradicating Hamas as a security threat to Israel is not fully satisfied by the Israelis, now the right wing is saying no.
Yeah, eradicating Hamas wasn't their main objective. Their main objective is killing as many Palestinians as possible so that the Israeli government can take it over.
No, we want more than that. So basically, the Hamas factor becomes just a justification for putting new or imposing new control over the strip. Therefore, I think there is a grandiose plan among the right wing in Israel in comparison what Netanyahu has.
I mean, Russia claims that Ukraine is harboring terrorists, which is why Russia wanted to invade Ukraine, take them out. And then they also wanted to take land that Russia thinks belongs to them. Why isn't Russia allowed to do that? Attack terrorists in Ukraine and take land that they claim rightfully belongs to them. That's the same thing that the Israeli government is doing. They're claiming terrorists live in Gaza, so they have to bomb Gaza, and now they want to take land, which they have been doing in the West Bank for a long time now. The Israeli government arms and funds terrorists to kill Palestinians and take their land. Why is it okay for the Israeli government to do it, but not okay for Russia to do it? And it's all determined by the United States and what they think is okay.
Verbalized in his last speech.
Well, he talks about encouraging the residents of Gaza to emigrate. But let's be honest here, this is not encouragement when, according to reports, more than 70%, if you destroy more than 70% of Gaza's buildings, critical infrastructure, water, electricity, that's a lot more than just encouragement, isn't it? That's making the place.
And when Russia was destroying critical infrastructure in the Ukraine, they were condemned for it. But the United States will continue to protect the Israeli government no matter what the Israeli government does. The Israeli government could nuke Gaza, and the United States would defend them.
Place uninhabitable.
we need to apply critical discourse analysis and scrutinize these phrases. Basically, it boils down to, number one, depopulation of Gaza. That means triggering all possible reasons that life becomes unbearable, and not only the infrastructure, but also the security threat among Gazans grows to the maximum. Therefore, there are two options. Either Israel pushes those 2+ million Gazans toward Sinai or other place or other region. Number two is also considering that Gaza becomes a source of migration, and then the Mediterranean becomes a passage from Gaza to other places, either in North Africa, in the Middle East, and Europe. So in the long run, there is a possibility that Netanyahu will play the migration card to, push or to put more pressure on the Europeans to provide him with what he needs to maintain this war. And by the way, we should also take into consideration that his speech yesterday was significant when he said